Today's Total Soccer Show is sponsored by Enclosed. If you're looking for something different for your significant other, why not get them high-end lingerie from Enclosed? We're not talking department store or Victoria's Secret. We're talking seriously high-end products. And with the Enclosed size guarantee, their products fit right 98% of the time. It's also beautifully presented in a very nice gift box, hence the name, Enclosed. For $35 off any multi-month subscription gift, go to enclosedlingerie.com. That's ENCLOSED, Enclosed, lingerie, LINGERIE.com. Use the code TSS at checkout for $35 off any multi-month gift. Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's still on the roster. He hasn't been sent back to Germany. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. If I were sent back to Germany, that would be slightly frightening since I have no business being in Germany.
Yeah. I guess you'd have joined a Bundesliga club, so...
All right.
Upgrade.
All right, there we go. Or a Bundesliga podcast.
Yes.
Me and Matt Herman.
Yes. Matt Herman called you home.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
So we are here to preview USA versus Chile. It's happening Tuesday night. Coverage starts at 7:55 Eastern on ESPN2, which, thank you, US Soccer. We appreciate the honesty. We're two people shy from the roster.
We are.
Right? So Weston McKennie, you saw him go for that very aggressive header, landed on his ankle, ankle sprained.
Yep.
Schalke phrased it on Twitter as a ruptured ligament.
Yeah.
But I think that's also just an ankle sprain.
I think the severity of the sprain denotes the rupturing, I guess, and it is like a very high-grade sprain, which I think means, like partial tearing or full tearing. Either way, it's going to require some time out and some rest.
Yep, so that's a few weeks off for Weston McKennie. He definitely won't be playing against Chile. He's gone back to Schalke. Tyler Adams, not injured, gone back to RB Leipzig.
Yeah, and this was...
What's this all about?
I don't know, because this is one... We talked about this a little bit before, that like... When I saw this, I was just like, yeah, okay, he's going home. Like, he's going back to Leipzig. That makes sense.
Do you think he calls it home yet?
Probably not. I think
he's getting there.
I feel like maybe it's that weird thing where, like, wherever you are is home. Like, if you're on vacation, then home is the hotel. That's what I would like to think. Tyler
if you still need Google Maps to get around, it's not home.
There we go. I mean, I feel like I've used Google Maps sometimes to get around Richmond.
Is that right?
Sometimes. Rarely.
All right, back to Tyler Adams.
Back to Tyler Adams. So then it was like, it made sense to me until, like, you asked me if it made sense to me. And I was like, yeah, they called him back. And you're like, yeah, but it's an international break and he's not injured.
You're allowed to keep him.
You're allowed to keep him.
That's the rules, right? A FIFA international break. You can call up the players. The club can't stop you. You don't have to send him back.
Then it got a little weirder. Because then suddenly I realized, like, yeah, you're right. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so we speculated if maybe there was like that meant he was going to be released for some other camp at some other point.
Yeah.
But I doubt it would be Olympic qualifying because that would be in October. I can't imagine Leipzig, if they do qualify for the Champions League and are trying to compete in the Bundesliga, they're going to let him just go away for like a month. So then the only other one would be like the January camp, like maybe next winter instead of going on their winter break.
So what we're saying is there's nothing outside of the regular international breaks where you can call him up anyway. There's no deal that we can see that's been struck. It seems more just that. So the quote from Berhalter directly, I believe, was something like, "We talked with Leipzig about they've got this Champions League running and that's important to them, and we told them what's important to us on our calendar, and we thought it was best for him to go and be with Leipzig." So I think the only way is that, one, they're keeping Leipzig happy, and two, they're just trying to help Tyler Adams really cement himself with RB Leipzig in this Champions League run-in that they have.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that makes sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, that or
I'm not sure I'm fully happy with that.
Maybe Gregg Berhalter left US soccer training and there was a man leaning up against the hood of his car smoking a cigarette. I was like, it would be a shame if something were to happen to Tyler Adams. Yeah. Maybe we wouldn't forgive you. He'd have a German accent in this scenario.
Tom Hagen was there.
Yes, exactly.
He was Irish-German, right?
There we go. Perfect. You got it. And, I mean, that is all I can figure is that maybe they said, he's a very key part of us pushing for the Champions League. We don't want to risk injury. So if it's possible, would you send him back? And maybe there was an implication of because next time maybe he has a hamstring strain and he can't play.
That's the equivalent of the horse's head,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
It's the fake hamstring strain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, one of those is more severe than the other, but yes, I take your point.
So, okay, we understand that it's happened. I'm guessing at this point, right, Berhalter is 3-0, hasn't conceded a goal. I've kind of got faith in him. I'm liking the system, even to the extent that I'm willing to just trust that he's doing the right thing here. But I'm still, as I'm sure many people are, super disappointed because Tyler Adams is the key to this entire system, right? He's the fullback that tucks inside. It's called the Nick Lima role because he did it first, but it's secretly the Tyler Adams role.
I mean,
right?
I don't know anymore. Nick Lima's going to have played it twice now.
And then one more game
Possibly.
would have, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that when we select our 11 later on.
That works.
It would have been nice to see him go one more game. And then, as we'll get into with our Chile preview, Chile's this like frenetic, like come after you kind of style. It was almost like Tyler Adams would have been playing against his family, right? He really fits their playing style. It would have been nice for us to have the type of player that can at least match them, sort of in terms of freneticism, which is not a word, but I'm making it one.
What also has experience playing against high level opposition, and especially high level opposition that presses. So I think he would have been a good player to have in there just for his poise on the ball when Arturo Vidal comes flying into a challenge, which they did a lot of against Mexico.
Yes.
So I am sad that he won't be there, and especially because, like I said in our Ecuador review show, that I thought he would start this game as well because you want to give him as many reps as possible.
Getting used to the system. So
when he was then sent home, I definitely scratched my head a little bit.
Okay, so
one other roster change, sort of to note: Jesse Gonzalez was sent back to FC Dallas for the weekend's game, and then has returned to the U.S. camp. I believe that indicates that he probably won't factor too much in this game.
There's also been a press conference where Gregg Berhalter has said,
there we go,
Ethan Horvath is starting this game.
Yeah, that's the big one.
So maybe we'll get into US starting 11 later on. I would like to get into Chile a little bit. We did our research.
I thought you were a vegetarian. Puns.
There's a vegetarian Chile.
You didn't state that directly, so therefore it defaults to meat. In your face. Pun accomplished. Hands in the air. Celebrating over here. Daryl's laughing.
So we took a good look at Mexico 3.
Still celebrating.
Chile 1. Tata Martino's debut. So I think we've got a bit of a good feel for this Chile team. We also had a Chilean journalist, Luis Vidal, no relation that we know of, reach out and offer to give us some info, essentially.
What if it were Arturo Vidal?
Just with a pseudonym.
Yes.
Give us some information about what's going on with the Chilean national team. So I just want to credit him up front. A lot of our research is half of us watching the game, half of a really good informative email from Luis Vidal. And I will say some things that both of us noticed in the game. We're always like half confident in our conclusions from watching a game, but when a Chilean journalist then tells us the same thing, I put a big check mark next to it. And I'm like, yes,
slightly more confident.
Correct.
Yes.
It's like having your work examined and getting a pass, right? I will say if you want to follow Luis on Twitter, he is at Luc Vidal, Luc Vidal. He also has a website that is all about soccer jerseys. It is
CambioDeCamiseta.com.
And we'll put a link in the show notes so you can go check that out. Thank you, Luis, for the research.
Indeed.
Okay.
Much appreciated. Before we talk Chile, I have one thing to say about Mexico. I'm sure Atlanta United fans will know this. There are many reasons to like Tata Martino. His "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed" face is one of my favorite faces in coaching.
Yes.
So many times in that game they cut to him on the sidelines and he just looked so like, you're better than this. What are you doing? And it was thoroughly enjoyable to watch him make that face at Mexican players consistently.
Another face I like is the "we just scored, but I'm still not impressed" face.
Exactly. What comes next? Yes. So yes, but Mexico did score. They scored 3 times.
They sure did.
They looked.
Jimenez.
You want to talk about him for a moment?
No, I'm just excited.
You just want to say his name?
It's a weird feeling to be super into a player, but then he plays for the US's biggest rivals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an odd, I'm very conflicted.
And it was sort of like, I don't know how to explain this other than that. Like, I had a lot of questions about this Chile team going into that Mexico game because it was some familiar names, it was some unfamiliar names.
Which is that is Chile right now, right? We'll get into that.
And it was like, to that point, it was like some too familiar names, as in like, really? We're still doing that one? All right. Yeah. And that's about what that game looked like. It looked like a team that was figuring things out and sort of adjusting to a new approach and trying to bring in veterans and young people and play a kind of different system. And it felt like they were still figuring it out kind of across the board.
I think that's it. And the big key is there's been a new coach. Since the failure to qualify for the World Cup, there's been a new coach, Ronaldo Rueda. He has been brought in to essentially refresh this Chile team, right? So if you're not familiar with Chile, they won the 2015 Copa America.
They did.
They won the 2016 Copa America.
They did.
Going back here, they were awesome in the 2014 World Cup, right?
Were.
We were super impressed. We called them cyberpunks in a very, very good way. Essentially, it kind of started to fall apart in World Cup qualifying in 2017.
And played in the Confederations Cup as well. So 4 summers of no breaks.
Oh, that was a point that Luis made to us, right? That essentially these players got worn out. But also they were kind of aging out, right? So the job for Ronaldo Rueda was to squeeze the last drops out of the golden generation, but also refresh the team with younger talent, right? And it's been rough. I think is it only 4 wins out of his 11 games?
Yeah.
He is not doing great.
4 wins, 3 losses.
Yeah.
3 draws, 4 losses. Not drosses, although I think the losses were kind of dross, so it works out. And then I think the other issue that we'll talk about a couple different issues, but one of the issues he's inherited as well is when you have a squad that is sort of aging but has been together for so long, there are then relationships, positive or negative, that form. And so also part of what he has inherited is a squad who have lots of experience with each other, and there are those tensions. So one of the things that Luis was telling us about is how after they failed to qualify, Claudio Bravo's wife, I believe it was, came out and said that the squad was a little too focused on partying and drinking and not so focused on preparation.
There was the Vidal drunk driving.
I mean, yeah, that
incident,
was a cough cough Arturo Vidal cough cough.
Yeah.
We're too focused on other things. And so just little things like that, I think he inherited a divided locker room that sounds like it's still fairly divided and still has a lot of those issues.
And the problem is it sounds like Rueda has made some choices in terms of the divided locker room, but then he's coming under pressure from the press for not selecting certain players, right? So Claudio Bravo, not selected, right? Arias is
injured.
In goal. He's injured, excuse me. Marcelo Díaz, who was sort of the more deep-lying playmaker, not selected. It's Eric Pulgar, who's selected instead. That apparently is a big point of contention, right? Because I think Díaz was another one who maybe got into some arguments with people.
It was that, from what Luis was telling us, the speculation was that there were there was a leak in the locker room that was talking about some of this sort of behind-the-scenes tension, and there was, well, not even the partying, but just sort of that there were, yes, there was partying, there was the stories about that, but then it was also some of like the locker room friction and some of the tensions was getting leaked to the press, and the speculation is that it was Marcelo Díaz who was maybe responsible for those
So
leaks.
He's been disappeared in a weird way, right?
I guess
from the
some of the
team.
people in the locker room maybe didn't want him included this time around.
And then the other one is Eduardo Vargas. He's a player we were always super impressed with. I believe I saw this in a translation. Maybe they call him Turbo Man, which is a really good description of Eduardo Vargas as a striker. He was initially called up, but there were discipline issues.
An act of indiscipline, right?
An act of indiscipline, which apparently wasn't like drinking or something like that. It was just he was some sort of problem in the locker room. He has been deselected from national team duty. So that's a big piece missing, right? Okay, so that's who's not there.
Well, there's one more big name that we haven't mentioned yet. Not necessarily for tensions, but it's Alexis Sánchez.
Yes.
Who has not been having a
right?
very good time. Yes, I think it's that, and maybe just a little bit of form, possibly. But
he, from what I read from Rueda, he loves Sanchez and would have kept selecting him. But Alexis Sanchez injured, so he's not around.
So he is not around.
Yeah. So who is around? Which are the Chilean players that US fans should be keeping an eye on, and for what reasons?
Do you want to go the bigger names first, or do you want to go the people that I'm excited to see?
Big names first, just so we keep listeners' attention with names that they know.
I mean, Arturo Vidal is the one. We've already talked about him a couple times. He has a somewhat turbulent past when it comes to the Chilean national team, but also a very successful past when it comes to this Chilean national team.
And in a good way, he causes turbulence on the field for the opposition.
He does, and is playing for Barcelona. I would say arguably the biggest club he's ever been playing for at the time of World Cup. No disrespect, Juve. No disrespect, Bayern Munich, but Barca's Barca. And so
You're a brave man.
I mean, they're pretty good. But I would say... the interesting thing for me when it comes to Vidal with this team is that it does feel like Rueda is going to stick with the 4-4-2 diamond. It's what he used against Mexico.
I feel like he's switched formations all over the place.
Yeah, I suppose. But it feels like from what I've seen in their, like, I went back and looked at their starting 11s for some of their recent friendlies and then looking at what they did against Mexico.
Yeah.
I think they did have a decent amount of luck. I would almost say it's more of a 4-1-3-2 than it is like a dedicated diamond.
Yeah.
But
we can say at the very least that Arturo Vidal is always deployed quite far forward, right? So he can, one, be involved in attacks. He was involved in Chile's only goal against Mexico. He had a 1-2 with Isla down the wing. But also he's involved in like forward destroying, forward pressure, putting pressure on the opposition when the defense has the ball. Fair?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And so I think if it is a 4-1-3-2, he'll be the central sort of playmaker-ish player. The reason why I feel like he would stick with this is just because even against Mexico, like Chile looked a little bit all over the place. It was difficult at times to figure out exactly what shape they were going for and what formation. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, so they'll want to do that again, but just more so you maybe want to get a little bit of consistency so people look a little bit more comfortable. Because I would see Vidal in the middle, then I'd see him on the left, then I'd see him on the right, then I'd see him like in as a center back.
That's Arturo, right? That's one of the benefits he brings is he brings absolute chaos because he has the lungs, has the capacity, and has the will to charge everywhere and run people down.
I agree. if that's what you want.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this is that Chile anymore. That it made sense under, say, Sampaoli or
Bielsa.
That, like, to have everybody running everywhere.
A younger Vidal.
A much younger Vidal. But to have him running everywhere and causing problems, but you know that if he's running somewhere, someone else is running somewhere, and they're kind of all over the place, that works a little bit better because it's kind of high-octane pressure. What do we call them? The dystopian cyberpunks?
Yes, roaming the post-apocalyptic landscape and robbing everybody of soccer balls.
But it doesn't...
That was 2014.
That was 2014. It does not work as well if you're trying to go for a more like static. We still put a little bit of pressure on, but we're not sort of all over the place, high press all over the place.
Actually, can we talk about this then? It's Chile's style. We noted was there is pressure, right? There's press. There's definitely more pressure than Ecuador.
Yes,
put on the
certainly.
United States, but it's not constant. It's intermittent, and I feel like maybe the plan is to pick your moments when you press.
Yeah.
So that's what the US is going to be up against. I say this just because I heard from a couple of people that maybe there was too much Ecuador in the Ecuador preview. It's worth really listening and thinking about what Chile are going to do because we're going to reference this when we do our US team later on in the show. All of that will reference what we think Chile are going to do, and it all combines together.
Yeah. I feel like also there are cautionary tales throughout history of people not paying attention to their opponent, instead just focusing on their army or their objective.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily work that well. So, in terms of soccer, you gotta kind of know that opponent to make sure you know what you're doing.
Know your enemy.
I do find myself all the time when we play soccer in our adult league, I don't really notice what the other team is doing. Should probably change that.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's what Reda's trying to do, because if you have Vidal just roaming all over the place, but you want him staying more central, I'm not saying he does, but that is a thing that I would be keeping an eye on. It's why I'm interested to see Vidal, because if you want him staying central and being that sort of link between defense and attack, and he can help transition and be that number 10, if he's suddenly playing as a left back, he's kind of vacated some space there. So how he performs in this game and what role he performs, I'm going to be very interested to keep an eye on.
One thing I'm really interested in is in the Berhalter system, there's going to be either Will Trapp or Michael Bradley as the 6, distributing the ball. Vidal's probably going to be in that guy's face.
Yes.
Right? So that's going to happen. That'd be really interesting.
And with that, and if not their face, then their ankles and their shins. There's a lot of tough tackles in that Mexico game on both sides. Don't get me wrong. It was both teams definitely playing a physical game, definitely drawing some cards on both sides. But I would expect that again against the United States. I think
it's going to be fun. It's going to be way more fun than the Ecuador game.
that is in the DNA of this Chilean generation, or at least of the Vidal. Who else?
Medel.
Yeah, Gary Medel, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we talk about Medel then?
Sure.
Because we've focused on Vidal a lot, obviously, because he's a super important player. Gary Medel, at least against Mexico, played centre-back. He doesn't look like a centre-back, but he's played there for a long time for Chile. He is tiny but mighty.
Yep.
He does not give up in the tackle. He's always going to get something in there. I think it'll be fascinating to see US attackers go up against Gary Medel.
I think it was the 2014 World Cup that he was basically held together by tape. Do you remember that? He had that, the tape all over that's supposed to help support your muscles. He had, every part of his body covered in that tape. He looked like a robot. Again, dystopian cyberpunks.
Any other players that people will know that we should mention before we get into the Chilean newish players that you're excited about?
I mean, Gary Medel would be the big one, and then there are other more familiar names like Charles Aranguiz, and Mauricio Isla, you already mentioned him, but the two big ones would be Medel and Vidal. Actually,
Isla's worth mentioning because I think he'll play. He'll wear number 4. He'll be the right back. He has a long, long history with Chile. I mean, unless they rotate the squad, I think he'll be the right back. This guy gets forward, gets crosses in. Right? Yeah. He's very good at timing his runs, getting 1-2s going with Vidal like he did against Mexico, and putting in really dangerous crosses. He's also a tough tackler from what I've seen. So Isla is an absolute challenge for the US at right back.
All right. And then in terms of the newer faces, the two that I would like to talk about, one is I would guess going to be playing up top. Maybe they'll change it. Maybe they'll rotate him out. If they're playing up front two, though, I think he'll be one.
Is it Nicolas Castillo?
It sure is.
Yeah.
And I hope he starts. I'll say that.
I think, a good way or a bad way? For the US?
What do you mean?
Is it a challenge for the US if he starts?
Yes,
or is it? Okay.
It's that. I think he's...
So you're not he's rubbish, I hope he starts.
No, he's a 26-year-old forward for Club America. Played in Portugal somewhere, Benfica maybe, and it did not go well. He's back now with Club America this time, I think. Before that he was with Pumas. But I watched him... Did you watch him on Y-Scout as well?
No, I didn't. I just watched the Mexico game.
I kicked you out of Y-Scout at one point today, so I was wondering if you were watching him too.
Oh, I didn't log in. I must have just been logged in from a previous session.
Permanently logged in.
Yeah.
But I found his combination of attributes fascinating. That he is physical. He can knock you off the ball. He will go in for a challenge. He can win stuff in the air. But he is really clever in his through balls and some of his just disguised passing that you'll expect him to kind of... Because he can shoot from distance and will, if it's on, can definitely hit free kicks from distance too. And so... I saw in a few games his opponents kind of backed off thinking he was going to shoot, and he would wind up to shoot, and then he would just hit this perfect little instep between two defenders into the path of an on-rushing forward, and they would just get like a little tap in. So he has this like physicality, but technical cleverness, but shooting ability that I think is going to be very problematic, and he's going to run down our defenders. So if there's a center back on the ball, I think he'll definitely put people under pressure.
With Vidal as the next wave, it could be dangerous for the US. That's the thing I'm excited to see is how they handle pressure when they get pressed.
Yeah.
Costa Rica did it a little bit, and it got interesting.
Yep. So again, that was Nicolas Castillo. I think he'll start up top. And then going the other way, I would say Guillermo Maripan.
Is he the centre-back?
He is the centre-back.
Is he the only tall centre-back that Chile have fielded in the last 10 years?
6'4", I think, is what Luis told us. But this is one... No disrespect to Luis, but this is one that I noticed myself in that Mexico game because Gary Medel is good in his position. Well, this is where we were talking about how like some of the stuff we saw was confirmed.
Yeah.
But there was a few that I was like, no, I wanted to say that.
You still get to say it.
We do. But
you just have a source as well now.
Exactly. His distribution stood out to me. That he's big and can win in the air. But I saw a few times he plays these sort of like, I have found the person, and even though they're 30 yards away and there's like maybe a defender closing, I'm just going to punch that ball into their feet. And he's sort of
little John Brooks-ish maybe
a little bit, yeah, exactly. And he does a really good job of kind of bypassing some of that like front line from Mexico on that occasion, and just doing a good job of looking calm on the ball. And then obviously a big dude who can win some stuff in the air, both defensively and offensively.
Okay, I want to talk about that then. Sure. I agree. I was impressed with him. Him being a big dude that wins stuff in the air. He's one of the few.
Yeah.
So Chile are still a small team, right? They have Maripan. They have Nicolas Castillo, who's a striker. In terms of tall guys, when they're facing set pieces, that's pretty much it. And it's not a coincidence that two of Mexico's 3 goals came from corner kicks. The first goal, they won a penalty from a corner kick. The second goal, Hector Moreno just strolled through and headed it in.
Yes, he did.
I took a look at their setup. They do a sort of hybrid man marking with like zonal marking across the 6-yard box.
On set pieces?
On set pieces, corner kicks, yeah. But essentially, it comes down to if you don't have that many tall guys, you're going to be in trouble. So if the US is filled in any of our centre-backs, I've got this, we'll get into this later.
Jose Mourinho had that philosophy. It didn't work out so well for him.
It didn't, but it worked in some seasons, right?
True.
Even if we've got Omar Gonzalez and Matt Miazga, suddenly we have more tall players than they do. Add Michael Bradley or anyone else who's good in the air, Ramirez or Zardes. Suddenly Chile are totally outmatched on set pieces. So I think that's really worth paying attention to.
So Daryl Grove is guaranteeing USA win 4 goals from set pieces. Is that what I heard you say?
It's a guarantee.
All right, it's a guarantee. Well, we'll talk a little bit about how the U.S. is going to deal with Chile and what we expect the United States to do in just a moment. But first, I wanted to talk about today's sponsor, SeatGeek. Our old pals over at SeatGeek. Getting tickets online can be far too complicated with hundreds of sites and varying levels of reliability. It's hard to know who to trust, but it's really not because you can always trust SeatGeek.
If you trust us, trust SeatGeek.
Yeah.
When you buy a ticket via SeatGeek, it's the real deal. It will get you into the thing you're going to. No one's going to look at it and be like, oh, sorry, you got done. No, you can't get done with SeatGeek.
It will get you into the thing you're going to.
Yes.
Well said,
I was being
my
deliberately
friend.
vague because it can be... You could go see the Book of Mormon. You could go see a comedy show. You could go see a music show.
Maybe the United States national team play Chile. You could go see that.
Maybe. So tickets are available via SeatGeek for USA versus Chile in, I believe, Houston. Is it Houston Dynamo Stadium?
You're correct.
I'm 99% confident.
That sounds likely.
Yeah.
Yes, and you could do that. The SeatGeek is very good for those kind of day of tickets. We've seen in the past, especially for like larger international tournaments when they come to town, when Copa America Centenario was here, that you get this sort of day of $10 tickets.
Yeah. You can see Venezuela if you wanted to.
Or that too. If you wanted to do that to yourself. So you can do it that way. And then obviously if you wanted to get just sort of like more in-demand tickets, you can find those on SeatGeek, especially if something is already sold out.
Yep.
I do not believe that USA Chile is sold out, so you can get tickets.
No, it's a US men's national team
any
game.
number of tickets to any level of like sort of standing. You can find them on SeatGeek.
And here's the thing, with all due respect to US soccer, they overcharge for tickets. The good news is you can get a sort of SeatGeek subsidy if you use the TSS discount code, right? So download the SeatGeek app, go to that.
TSS subsidy.
Kind of. It's a little bit like healthcare.gov. You go to, if you find the US men's national team games.
And that the website doesn't work?
I mean, it does now.
Okay.
It didn't in the past.
There we go.
Go to, I will not hear a word against the Affordable Care Act. It is sort of keeping me alive right now. So this is also an ACA ad. Happy 9-year anniversary. All right, so if you go to SeatGeek, download the SeatGeek app, you find the US national team game. If you go to settings, enter the promo code TSS. You will get $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. So US Soccer overcharges by $10, some might say. SeatGeek helps you get that money back.
So once again, just download the SeatGeek app.
It's funny because it's true, Taylor. It's funny because it's true.
It is. And enter the promo code TSS today. That's promo code TSS for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Remember, Daryl Grove, SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets. And they also have a TSS subsidy.
Yes, they do. All right, so final thing on Chile, because I think it segues nicely into the US. It's worth thinking about the contrast in style between how Chile play and how Gregg Berhalter's US men's national team play. Here's how I would describe Chile. Tight, frenetic.
Okay.
Right? So when they don't have the ball, when they press eventually, they swarm in numbers, not by spreading around the field. You know what I mean? Like a lot of guys come around the ball and get in your face. When they have the ball, I noticed a lot of the passing is short, sharp, fast, and close to each other, right? In contrast, when we're playing Greggy ball, which I want to call it, for the US men's national team, the system, it's all about controlling play. It talks a lot about controlling the ball. US is in possession, and we're going to move it around for a long time until we unbalance the opposition. It's about having wingers spread nice and wide to open up the field.
Yeah.
So it's an absolute contrast in style, and only one will emerge victorious.
Oh, I mean, yes, that's true. But I also think one may emerge victorious, but not necessarily intact. Because what's the old Mike Tyson quote of like everybody's got a plan to get punched in the face?
Yes.
Like everybody thinks they're going to play expansive possession-based soccer until you play Chile.
Yes.
And then we see how you do against it, because I do think they're going to go, even if they're not as frenetic, even if there are times when they sit off a little bit and don't, I don't think it's going to be the center backs if we're 30 yards from our own goal. If those center backs, I'm saying them as we in that moment, not me a center back, but yes, if the center back's like 30 yards from their own goal, I don't expect Castillo to be sprinting down on them every single moment of every single chance. But I do think
at some point he will, though, right?
You will get that pressure, and then it's how does the United States respond, and especially are they able to respond fast enough, given that they're coming off of an Ecuador team that was very standoffish and gave them tons of time on the ball, and you can get used to that. That's a thing that can happen. Is you can think, oh, I've got so much time, and you can maybe buy into it. These guys are pros, don't get me wrong, but there can be that like, oh, I'm on this next level where I've got so much time and I can play this ball here and I can play this ball there.
You picture like Tim Ream going to the sideline. They're coming over the halfway line.
Yeah, what's happening now? Wait, this didn't happen before. So, like, I do think how the United States adapts and responds, first of all, if they need to, if they just kind of persist with what they're doing and pull it off, then that's a very good sign. Yeah. But if they don't, how they change it up to be able to deal with Chile, I want to see what ends up happening in that regard.
It's a fascinating next step, right? Like we said, Panama was maybe too easy. Costa Rica was slightly challenging, but doable. Ecuador was a tough opponent to break down. Yeah. Now Chile is like next level, the next level up, right? It's like a video game where we've gone to level 4. Level 4 is Chile. And what's going to happen is either Chile will really disrupt the US's passing game, possession game coming out the back, or the US will have learned so much and be so good at this possession game that we bypass the press, and afterwards then space is opened up, right? Yeah. So there's two ways this could go.
And I think space especially
throughout the game, there's two ways it could go, right? Sometimes one way, sometimes the other way.
This is true. Yeah. That's directions are that way.
Yeah.
But I think also this is a game, again, not to be like Pert Hapley and state the obvious, but if the United States is able to get a goal in the first 10 minutes, that changes things dramatically. Because if you go back and look at that Mexico game, it felt more open-ended than I expected it to be because it was 0-0 at halftime. But as soon as Mexico got that goal, you started to see Chile open up. And it wasn't just that then they were exposed, but more so that they committed numbers forward in a way that they didn't necessarily with like the kind of reckless abandon that they did in later on in the game as they had in the beginning. And so I think...
So we can make them reckless if we score early.
Exactly, because then you're going to see them with like 7 committed forward.
I've heard Zardes has been measuring everybody's calves and getting the angles right to bounce balls off of their calves and over the goalkeeper.
He's a perfectionist. That works. But because I think that if you can start to get this Chilean team frustrated and you do start to get them maybe chasing and putting pressure on but not organized pressure, just Vidal charging around and somebody else charging around and Anguisse charging around, then it's not coordinated, and I think that's where you can start to pull them apart a little bit.
Yes. Okay, you want to talk about how the US is going to line up? Sure. So there was a Berhalter press conference. I don't do this often during the show, but I'm just going to check my phone to make sure there hasn't been sort of full text of the press conference released. Right. There has not. All I heard from the conference was via Jeff Carlisle tweets that, one, Gregg Berhalter says there's going to be a bunch of changes. Yep. And he'd said something similar after the Ecuador game, right? And 2...
He said after the Ecuador game, we'll make some changes against Chile. It won't be the same lineup, and it will give other guys an opportunity. And again, continue on the theme of using the camp to evaluate what we have.
So he's evaluating players for the Gold Cup is the big thing, right? The other thing is he did confirm that Ethan Horvath would start this game, not Sean Johnson, not Jesse Gonzalez. So I think that's a good example of the type of rotation he's going to do, right? 1 game Johnson, 1 game Ethan Horvath. No Adams, no McKennie. Worth remembering as we get into selecting this lineup.
So there's 3 changes right there.
Yeah.
That is kind of what I am uncertain about, though, is we still have a relatively small sample size when it comes to Gregg Berhalter.
Yeah.
And those 2 January friendlies, not a lot changed between the first game and the second game.
I want to say it was almost identical.
I think it was. And so I say then that I don't know what a bunch means.
Yes.
Like a bunch could
How
mean...
big is a bunch?
Could mean 4. It could mean 6 or 7 changes. I genuinely don't know.
You buy a bunch of bananas, there could be 7, there could be 3. They're both bunches.
I guess that's true.
Uh-huh.
I feel like if I buy a bunch of bananas, I'm expecting more than 3.
Okay.
I'm throwing that out.
You pay by weight, so it's okay.
This is true. So it's going to be, we expect Christian Roldan coming in for Weston McKennie. We would expect Tyler Adams not to start, so maybe that's Nick Lima, maybe it's somebody else. And then Ethan Horvath replacing Sean Johnson. So there's your 3 changes right there.
Should we start with those conversations then?
Sure.
Okay, so Tyler Adams is out. I see this as one of 2 options. Either Nick Lima plays the Nick Lima role.
Yep.
Or DeAndre Yedlin plays right back and we don't do the fullback going into midfield thing. We just do a straight up and down Yedlin thing. And I'm saying that because of the earlier quote from Berhalter about how we're not going to ask DeAndre to do things he's not comfortable with.
Right.
And I think it could go either way.
It could. I think if you're playing DeAndre Yedlin as a right back as a way to evaluate like our plan B, that plan A is the Nick Lima role, which is what we're officially calling it now, even if Tyler Adams plays it for now. If that's your plan A, and then plan B when you go up against stronger opposition who maybe have a little bit more potent of an attack, then it is to drop into like a more just kind of standard like defensive 4
type deal.
Then I guess I'm okay with it. But I would rather see Nick Lima go back to that spot, and I would rather see DeAndre Yedlin start instead of Jordan Morris.
Okay.
That's about where I am.
Let's work on that basis then.
Okay.
So Nick Lima in the Nick Lima role, which he performed brilliantly in January against
That's why
Panama.
It's called the Nick Lima role.
And Costa Rica, I also think, we talked about this off air a little bit, Taylor, I think, because Chile will have essentially either a 3 or 4 man midfield. It might be good to have the right back shift into midfield to make sure that we're numerically matched, because the slight downside of the wingers going so wide on the touchline, it's great to open up the opposition. When they counter on us, if we're not in shape, we might need that extra midfielder. Otherwise, Arturo Vidal's like dribbling through.
Yeah. And that's where I could see what I would like to see is something where it's like it is Nick Lima, and if he does go central, then Yedlin has limited responsibilities in terms of he has to be the one to get back and kind of cover
Yedlin
that
as a right winger, like when he came on for Morris in the last 20
But maybe
or
has
so.
to help cover that right side if there is a counterattack on.
Yeah.
So it's not just him being like, well, I'm a winger now, I can stay up top and stand and watch what happens. It's still him getting back and being defensive while Lima shifts to a more central position at times.
And I guess the flip side is... because we expect Chile to have at least more of the ball than Ecuador did, and at least maybe not just kick the ball away like a quarterback wasting it down, like Ecuador did when they had the ball a lot of times, we will end up in situations where Chile have the spell of possession.
Did you say the quarterback kicking away?
Throwing away.
Thank you.
You've seen that thing where a quarterback will just throw it away because pressure's coming?
Yes, okay.
That's what Ecuador did.
All right.
Okay, I'm not an NFL expert. Chile will have the ball. The US will fall back into that 4-4-2 defensive shape that we talked about. In that defensive shape, it would be Nick Lima at right back, DeAndre Yedlin at right mid. I would expect that you wouldn't have that Jordan Morris situation where, do you remember he got sort of burned by that Casado interior run because he didn't check the interior run. So at least 2 right backs is good security.
Yeah? We would hope.
Good luck, Aaron Geese, if you're up against 2 right backs.
One would hope that that's the case, yes. And then, again, this is where it gets to the idea of I don't know what a bunch is, because I would happily see John Brooks and Aaron Long start again to get them more reps together with Tim Ream in there, too. I thought Tim Ream looked okay, aside from 1 or 2 little mistakes. One big mistake and one slightly large mistake.
One thing, I tweeted this the other day, that I always listen to the Scuffed podcast, and they usually catch something that we didn't catch, right? The thing they caught, Tim Ream lost almost all his headers.
Did he?
Which is really weird for a centre-back playing out wide. Normally, you would expect him to dominate whoever he's up against.
That sounds made up.
Yeah, but do you remember something that he would like head accidentally backwards and flick down the line, or just lose altogether? So that's the thing to keep an eye on. Can Tim Ream start winning some headers again at left back?
If he starts, because that's the other question, is it Lovitz who ends up starting at left back? Right. And we kind of have that return to the January camp.
Here's why I don't think it's Lovitz. This is just speculation. Because he's already played 2 games, he's already been evaluated by Berhalter. Okay. Maybe there's more to gain from having Tim Ream there.
Okay, so if it is Ream, should I pencil him in with my pen?
That's not possible, but yeah, pen him in with your pen.
All right. So what about center backs then?
I would prefer Brooks and Long. I think it worked. I love how Long covers the space at right back when the fullback goes forward. I think that's a key part of it. I think, based on the fact that neither Omar Gonzalez or Matt Miazga has played for Gregg Berhalter, I think it might be an Ethan Horvath style thing where, even though they seem to be second choice in the pecking order, Gonzalez and Miazga start this game.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't love it, but here it is.
I honestly, I will go with that because I do not have any strong opinions one way or the other because I really could rabbit hole this one pretty easily.
Yes,
it's like,
same. My head's spinning.
If it is Miazga and Omar, then that means he wants to see something different. He wants to give them an opportunity, and maybe that also means that they've performed really well in camp and they've risen to the occasion, and he thinks, okay, they can handle this. But on the flip side, if we don't see them, then maybe it means the opposite, that they haven't risen. Like, so you could just kind of go down this, like, well, that could mean this and that could mean that, and therefore that could be that. Who knows?
Can I just stick my head in the rabbit hole for a second?
Sure.
Here's one idea. Okay, Aaron Long has already played a bunch of games for Gregg Berhalter. John Brooks has only played one game and was brilliant, by the way, especially his distribution, which I think is key. Maybe he just pairs it with John Brooks starts alongside Matt Miazga because Long has already started a bunch, and maybe Omar Gonzalez gets half an hour later in the game.
Okay.
Yeah?
I think I'm good with that.
Okay,
all right.
Pull my head out the rabbit hole.
I'm going to pen that in as well.
Okay.
So we're going to go Brooks and Miazga.
Yeah.
But won't be surprised if it's Miazga and Omar. Won't be surprised if it's Brooks and Long again. It could be either one of those. All right, cool. And then this is where I have a little bit of a wrinkle question. I have like 4.
Oh, sorry. Before you get to that, I'll give you a chance to look it up. One of the key concerns we had and everybody has is about Omar Gonzalez's passing. We trust Matt Miazga's passing, right? We've seen good examples from Miazga playing through the lines. He's a Berhalter centre back in that way that it's really important for the team. Omar Gonzalez, I don't think we have the evidence of that. And he's going to be under pressure from Chile. It'll be, for me, a really key test of, is Omar up to the task of playing in the Berhalter system? So that's just a thing to keep an eye on if he plays.
All right. And then I had a few more remaining questions / possible wrinkles. One of them was Will Trapp. Does he retain that starting spot, or does Gregg Berhalter give Michael Bradley the start and see what happens there?
We talked about this in terms of if Trapp starts, it kind of suggests that Trapp is the number one.
I think it does.
Because then he started 2 games in a row.
But then I go back to my concern of that was against Ecuador. Because Gregg Berhalter wants somebody who can play those long balls, who can kind of split the lines or play people in behind if that's what needs to happen.
Which, by the way, is really helpful against Chile because they go tight and swarm. If Trapp can play out of pressure, suddenly the ball out wide to the left winger or the right winger will be on because their defense will be so sort of narrow.
But here's my question then, is it goes back to, was Trapp able to do that so effectively against Ecuador because he had so much time in the middle?
Yes.
And I think about when Bradley did come in, maybe it's just a few moments standing out, but it did feel like he was more okay with playing one-touch passes, even if they didn't necessarily spread the field or split the field. I felt like the tempo was increasing, and so I do then wonder: is he more adept in that role when there's more pressure, when he knows he's going to come under it faster to kind of get rid of the ball and read things a little bit more quickly, or is that something that Will Trapp has improved upon? So either one who starts,
I think either's interesting. It's a test for Will. It's a sort of career progression test for Will Trapp to try and play the way he plays with Arturo Vidal running him down. And it's also are you still good enough test for Michael Bradley?
Yep.
Like a more towards the end of career test for Michael Bradley. So that'll be interesting.
I do think if Trapp starts, that it signifies it's his position to lose. Because if you call Michael Bradley in and you don't start him in either game, that feels like we've kind of passed
we've
some
got
sort
numero
of
uno
mile
and numero dos.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
I would also say, in terms of, I'm happy whichever one starts, right? Trapp is more likely to at least match Chile for aggressive tackles.
Yeah.
Whereas Bradley, we know that he likes to do the defensive crouch, shade, cover kind of thing, and maybe rely on Tyler Adams to do the tackling for him. So that's one contrast to look at.
One other thing to note, Will Trapp did get that big tackle. I think it was against Caicedo again. Was able to play 10 or 15 minutes of the second half, but it was like a pre-planned substitution because of that injury.
Yeah.
From what I read, he was a full participant in training this weekend, so it seems like he is back to full fitness, but I just wanted to throw that out there just in case people are wondering. It seems like Trapp should be able to go if that's what they decide to do.
I noticed you penning things in.
I am.
I noticed something to the wide right. Oh, Yedley, you've penned in Yedley. All right, so assuming the sort of 4-3-3 graphic, even though it's only briefly 4-3-3 until we cross the halfway line, the 2 attacking midfield spots ahead. Against Ecuador, it was Christian Pulisic was slanted left, Weston McKennie was slanted right. What do we think happens this time?
I think Christian Roldan replaces Weston McKennie. That would be my guess.
Because that's what happened during the game. Yeah.
There it is. And what happened, he played there in January and looked fine doing it. I am less confident about Christian Pulisic, strangely enough, because they came out and said they were managing his minutes, that it was, again, a pre-planned substitution when he came off, because I think Dortmund maybe had asked them not to play him so much, similar to RB Leipzig. So I then wonder if they are managing his minutes, is this one where maybe we see him get 20 minutes at the end as opposed to start the game? Or if he does start the game, is it one where we see him get 50 minutes or 55 and then he comes off?
So it's basically the same as against Ecuador.
Yeah, I think given that you don't have Adams and McKennie, you probably start Christian Pulisic because you need some sort of...
One of the Trinity.
I think so, yes. So my guess would be Pulisic and Roldan as those two central midfielders.
That's interesting. I don't disagree. And I think this will be a good test in terms of as we learn what Berhalter's doing. Is he really wedded to the two right-sided guys are McKennie and then Roldan, and the two left-sided guys are Pulisic and then Lletget? Because Lletget came in, Lletget was the guy that put the pressure on the Ecuadorian. It turned out to be the centre-back, not the right-back when I rewatched it.
I see what you're doing here.
He forced he was the one that forced the turnover that created the US goal. I think he was pretty decent as well outside of that. I would say he outperformed Roldan in the brief time they both had. So it could be Lletget on the right, Pulisic on the left, or Berhalter could be wedded to very specific right-left stuff.
Oh, okay, I don't see what you're doing. Because the other one that I think like Matt Doyle, a few others were clamoring for is...
Pulisic to the left?
It could be Roldan and Lletget starting and Pulisic on the left side of the attack.
I think I would favour that.
Really?
Just to get a look at Pulisic out wide in the Berhalter system. Because I would like to see him have the ball and get a run at people from wide left.
All right,
so I'd be all in on that.
Am I penning this in then? Pulisic on the left and then Roldan and Lletget in the middle?
We're penning this in as a Taylor Darrell preference, but I think what's really going to happen is Pulisic and Roldan and then like Paul Areola or Corey Baird or someone on the left.
All right.
Yeah.
So what should we do then? Should we go with the Taylor and Darrell preference?
This is the problem of pen, not pencil, isn't it?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to put Pulisic on the left. Okay. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I agree with you that I think it would be interesting to see him try it in a different spot where he has a little bit more familiarity playing wide, cutting inside, getting opportunities, causing 1v1 situations.
Agree.
Lletget in the middle with Roldan. And that leads to my other burning question about this team. Is it Giassi Zardes again? Do we see Giassi Zardes for a fourth game starting under Gregg Berhalter? Or is it maybe Christian Ramirez gets to start just to see what he can bring in? Or possibly Jordan Morris gets to start centrally this time?
So the weird thing is Christian Ramirez wasn't even on the bench.
He was not.
I don't know why. There wasn't any report of injury.
Nor was Nick Lima, I think.
I don't know if maybe he just didn't have a good camp or what, or maybe he's got a knock or what's going on. My guess would be the bunch of changes might include Ramirez starting up top or might include Morris starting up top. But then we wouldn't be surprised to see Giassi after scoring the game winner.
No, we wouldn't.
I guess I've just talked myself in a circle and gone, I've dropped fully down a very big rabbit hole.
But I made the choice last time, so you have to do it this time.
It's going to be Giassi Zardes. Okay. Let's go with what's past his precedent. Giassi Zardes starts.
And is there anything
But maybe comes off this time for Ramirez or Morris.
Is there anything he could do? Like obviously scoring a hat-trick would be ideal. But is there anything that you would really like to see him do in this game that would make you feel better about him as the consistent starter?
I'm always going to prefer Josie Altidore. I just think he has a more rounded game, and I'm excited to see him in this system. But maybe more of the link-up play. Yep. Like we liked the moments when he came and linked up and did that nice little sideways pass to send Pulisic through. I think just like if it was more than 3 or 4 examples we could pull from a game, if there were like 7, 8 examples of Zardes linking up play and creating chances for other people, I think there's a stronger argument for it. Doesn't matter if he doesn't score. He did all this stuff, and there's like a heavy base of evidence. But obviously, scoring would be the big thing.
It would. But I'm
not missing a golden chance like that Jordan Morris crossfield ball.
I'm going to say that's priority number 1, is don't do anything like obviously terrible. But number 2 is I think you're absolutely right that I think he didn't have as much link-up play as we would have liked. He had very few touches in that game against Ecuador, but I think part of that was because they were so bunkered and sat so deep. Yeah. His job, I think, was to stretch and kind of try to find space where he could.
Yeah.
It wasn't that easy of a job, whereas Chile, as we've talked about, they may be stepping out, they may be a bit more aggressive. There will be some space to be found, and I think it will be very important for Giassi Zardes to go out and hunt down that spot and hunt down that space so he can get that ball and cause more problems and make Chile uncomfortable and make them shift around a little bit. If he is just kind of standing next to Gary Medel with his hand in the air or sort of trotting back and forth.
I think the one thing he can always guarantee with Giassi Zardes, the reason Berhalter likes him, the reason we liked him at Crewe, the reason he picks him for this national team with this style, is that he does not just stand next to the centre-back with his hands in his imaginary pockets. He is always on the move. It just depends how effective it ends up being.
That's what I guess that's what I mean is I would like to not have another game where we're like, oh, he didn't have many touches, but maybe that's what Berhalter wanted. Maybe Berhalter's okay with that. I would like to see one where he gets lots of touches, does a good job holding it up, maybe creates a few chances, maybe gets a few shots, maybe scores a goal, but I want to see him be more involved in the attack this time around.
One thing we didn't note in the Ecuador review when I rewatched the goal is, okay, so Ecuador They're forced to play long by Leggett. Tim Ream intercepts. Giassi Zardes is very quick to be in space and demanding the ball from Tim Ream. I feel like we didn't give him enough credit for that goal because so much was focused on the fact that he just hit it when he shouldn't have hit it and then got lucky because it bounced. He was really quick to react in transition, which I think is maybe a thing that we don't think about. We actually don't think about it much with this team at all because the way Berhalter plays, there's not many transition moments. It's more about possession, right?
Then, I mean, camera angle is always going to make it a challenge, but let's try to see if we can monitor what Giassi Zardes is doing in that moment of turnover, in that moment of transition when the U.S. gets it back. Is he running away with his hand in the air? That seems less likely. Or is he checking in and showing and trying to kind of make himself available, if not to turn and go at a defender, then to lay it off and kind of trigger a counterattack that way.
Sounds good. Okay, so I'm all good with that.
Okay.
I would like to talk a little more about the wingers,
sure,
if you're okay with it. Paul Arriola was excellent.
He was.
On the left wing. And he legally had the ball in the net. Should not have been ruled out for that Jordan Morris offside, right? He's also scored under Berhalter already. Is it the case that maybe he's done so much that he's already impressed and he's not, and so he's among the bunch of changes? Or should we think of him as just he's going to start on the left or the right wing?
I think it depends on how you're approaching this game.
Yeah.
And if you think that Gregg Berhalter should be approaching it from, I'm putting my best possible team out there, which he did in the second January friendly, I'm putting the best possible team out because I want people to get familiar, then it's absolutely Paul Arriola he should be starting.
On one of the wings? Yeah, I agree.
But if it is we kind of know what this team is, I want to see a little bit of variation and a little bit of who can challenge Paul Arriola. Is there anybody out there who has now seen what he's done? And maybe like Jonathan Lewis, for example, who's come in and been a substitute and had an impact, has scored goals, has created chances. What can he do with a start? Maybe that's what we see.
That was going to be my next question. Has he earned a start?
If you want to see that sort of experimentation. So I guess that's my answer. It's not a very definitive answer, but if we want to win this game and play our best team, it's Paul Arriola. If we want to experiment, then I'm more okay with a different name being in there.
Imagine Pulisic on the left, Arriola on the right. Those are that would be wingers to get excited about, right? And then they're stretching Chile out and running at people.
I think we'd get excited about them. Some U.S. fans probably less excited about them.
Yeah, that's fair. And then there's always Corey Baird. So he did his job.
Rookie of the year.
Berhalter was impressed with what he did on the wing, the right wing against Panama and Costa Rica. Do we see him again?
I mean,
my guess is off the bench 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Corey Baird.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay. Closing thoughts on this game. I think there's a big thing that we talked about where the US will be spread wide, Chile will be narrow, and it just depends what wins the day, right? The thing I would guarantee is that this game will be fun to watch.
Yep.
Yeah?
It will. I think it's going to be ugly at times. I think there's going to be some fouls. I think there's going to be some late challenges, and I especially think if the United States goes...
I'll be Leipzig real smart then.
Yes. Yes. Because I also think that if the United States chooses to sort of go that route as well, if Arturo Vidal maybe has a late tackle on somebody and then the United States responds, I think that escalates pretty quickly. So I think it could be a very physical game potentially, or it could be a very end-to-end exciting game, or maybe a combination of the two.
Okay.
But I would err on one or two, ooh, that was a bad foul sort of moments.
So the game once again is ESPN2. It is Tuesday night. Coverage starts at 7:55 Eastern. We're guessing kickoff is what, probably 8 o'clock, 10 past 8?
We are. One thing I wanted to know, though, there was another key thing. You had talked about the kind of height advantage for Chile, or height disadvantage for Chile, advantage for the United States. That's true unless you don't take advantage of it. And I didn't think the United States looked particularly good on their set-piece delivery. I thought some of Christian Pulisic's corners were erratic. They would go to the back post when it felt like everyone was running to the front post, and then vice versa, which maybe meant he had the cues down or didn't have them down or just mishit the ball. But I think if you want to exploit some of those opportunities, that set-piece delivery has got to be better. So maybe that's something they've worked on with a few more days of camp. Maybe they have a few more sort of plans in place for what to do if that situation arises.
Well, we're zeroing in on things that we would like to see the US improve. So, set-piece delivery specifically. The attacking midfielders receiving the ball between the lines. Do you remember one of the key things against Ecuador was Pulisic and McKennie would receive the ball in space. They'd find the space, get the ball from Brooks or whomever, and then the touch would be loose and the thing would break down. That's a big thing I think is worth looking for in this game. Do they just control it and turn, and then we're in behind Pulgar, who I'm still not convinced is all that good, right? He's one of those players that looks smooth on the ball, but didn't really do anything with it. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's what Luis said was about the read on Pulgar.
There we go, yeah. So I would like to see Pulisic and Roldan or Leggett in behind, receive the ball, make something happen.
Yeah, if that first touch, like that first pass that's received is under control and like then they turn with it immediately, that's progress from spilling it 5 yards back the way the ball came.
Yes, absolutely.
So once again, that game is 7:55 is when we think coverage begins. We're not
ESPN
sure
2.
what time kickoff is, but yeah, ESPN 2. Tune in around 8. You should be fine.
There we go. Okay, before we move on, I want to send out a thank you to the Total Soccer Show Reddit.
Right.
So totalsoccershow.reddit.com. Thank you. They did a get well card for me with lots of little messages with a Reddit guy in the middle. And Alex, who's on our soccer team, is part of that community, received it and gave it to me. So I want to say a huge, huge thank you to everybody who contributed to that.
Where is that going to live, do you think?
It's at my house right now because I got it after our soccer game. I want to bring it into the office, but I biked in today and I couldn't guarantee its safety.
I think if you really cared about it, you would take it with you everywhere you go.
Everywhere I go.
Even on the field. Even when we're playing. It's
Even
on the
field.
It might be illegal. I'm not sure.
Do you mind if I give a little health update?
Sure.
So I got back on the field.
No, I do not mind.
I got back on the field this weekend.
You did.
It didn't go great. I've lost a lot of weight, and it turns out a lot of pace. And I did not adjust well for it. But I know I didn't have a great game. So for people who were there, I know
full no comment over here.
I know that. But it was a big deal for me to get back on the field, and everyone was really supportive.
Yes.
Even Taylor, as he conceded goals that were my fault for my lack of pace, was very supportive.
I was playing goalie on one hamstring. It was real fun.
We really were the walking wounded in all kinds of areas.
Yours is slightly more severe than mine. I'll say that. I'll say that.
And then extra updates, if you don't mind, because we haven't talked about this for a while. I don't want people to think that
Why do you think I would mind?
Well, just because it's a little self-indulgent, but I want to keep people updated. So I mentioned first round of chemo kicked my ass. Second round was much, much better. So that's the good news.
Almost like you take your full dose of medicine and things are better.
I figured out when to take anti-nausea meds and what to eat and how to do it. So it was much, much better. Third round starts this Thursday. So I'll be off Thursday, Friday, probably Monday. I'll be off Total Soccer Show. The good news is that means you get to hear the sweet, sweet tones of Mr. Ryan Bailey.
The spread of the Tay-Tay has continued. Thank you, Ryan Bailey. Yes, he'll be back. We're going to do, I think, an international window roundup, talking about some of the bigger results and bigger moments.
Are you guys going to talk about England's 5-0 win?
No. And then we definitely will, because it's Ryan, and he'll want to talk about it.
Please.
And then I think he'll be back on Monday as well for a more standard weekend review.
Oh, because we're back to Premier League and all that this weekend, right?
But I think he and I have run into the issue that you and I used to run into, which is on weekends where there are lots of big games and lots of key moments. So, for example, the last weekend review we did, we did not have in the running order for the weekend the Man City Swansea FA Cup game.
Because it just didn't seem like a big deal, but then everything happened.
Exactly. And so I think we had 4 or 5 of those games, and suddenly we ended up having 9 or 10 games to talk about, and it felt like a bit much. So we might try to boil it down just a little bit to some of the very key games from the weekend or very key moments if those arise.
Do you mind if I make a suggestion on air?
I guess we'll see.
So I enjoy listening to you and Ryan. I think you got good banter and it's fun. I would love more goal breakdowns.
Okay.
Specifically, I listened to the Wolves Man United breakdown thinking, I want them to talk about Jimenez's goal and I want to talk about Jota's goal. But there was no goal breakdown, which is what I think you and I would have done. Because I would have kept asking until you said yes.
All right.
So maybe just dig into more specifics of the goals for my listening pleasure.
We'll see.
Any other notes before we move on?
No other notes before we move on.
Wrong. US under-23s. They lost 2-0 to Egypt.
I have no notes on US under-23s.
I do. Sorry, they lost 2-0 to Egypt. They tied 0-0 with the Netherlands and apparently looked pretty good doing an approximation of Greggy Ball. That we won't necessarily have a review on this show.
Are we calling it Greggy Ball? Is that happening? Is that what you're doing here?
I'm seeing if it's cashing or not. It depends how you feel about it.
You can continue to call it that.
All right, that seems like a begrudging acceptance. With maybe the system maybe sounds ominous, right?
I think that's also something else. We'll call it Greggy Ball for now.
Greggy Ball, okay. We probably won't have a full review on this show. There will be a review of the U23 games on the Top Draw Soccer Show.
That there will be.
Top Draw Soccer Show. Subscribe. It's going up the iTunes charts. I tweeted about that today. Subscribe to that show and you get sort of any, especially youth team content that you think is missing on Total Soccer Show. It's on Top Draw Soccer Show.
Yeah, it is.
Go find it.
Go find it. Also, if you're missing hearing about young up-and-coming players and what they're doing, then we've got some scouting reports for you. We're going to move on to the TSS Scouting Network. Daryl Grove, how does the Scouting Network work exactly?
Okay, you subscribe you join at totalsoccershow.com/join.
That checks out.
You financially support the show at any level you feel comfortable with, $5 or up. We assign you a young player to scout. You send us reports, and then we read those reports, and it's a big content part of the show.
Eventually.
Yes. Yeah, so we got behind because of everything that happened in January, February. Also, I'm behind on assigning as usual. But I am up to date with everybody who says, sent me the itchy feet email of, hey, I'm waiting for my player. Send it to me. I'm caught up with that. But if you are getting impatient, email me, DARYL@TotalSoccerShow.com. Let me know you're waiting for your player. I will get your player to you if you email me.
If you email him. All right, but we do have some scouting reports to get to, starting with Michael Curry, scouting Haji Wright, the 20-year-old American forward for Schalke. After getting irregular minutes for Schalke this season, Haji was called up to the US U23s for their March friendlies and started in their loss to Egypt. This was submitted before that game against the Netherlands. I don't know if he played there, but I do know that Haji Wright was subbed off at the half with all 10 other starters.
Yeah, I think basically everybody got to play because there was a big line. Everyone freaked out when Josh Sargent didn't start, but they just did a half and half.
There we go.
Yeah, halfsies. Mark Canterman is scouting Christian Kappis, the 19-year-old American midfielder for Hobro. I know what happened here. Mark says Christian came on as a late sub for Alex Mendez and scored on a low cross in the box to secure a tie in the US Under-20s match against France on Friday.
Okay, we're going to win it all. That's what I have to say.
We certainly are.
Wes Kaufman scouting Ayo Akinyola, 19-year-old American forward for Toronto FC. After getting a call-up to the US U20 camp in Spain, so I guess the call-up happened, then he played for Toronto. Akinyola got his first MLS start, scored his first MLS goal, and got an MLS assist in a 3-2 win over New England.
It's a lot of MLS-branded things he did.
It really is. He's on brand, if nothing else. For his goal, Akinyola received the ball just outside the box on the left side and skipped past a couple of defenders before curling in a beautifully weighted right-footed shot, easily beating the New England goalkeeper.
I like him skipping past people.
It's what he does.
Jaron Wright is scouting Justin Glad, 22-year-old American centre-back for Real Salt Lake. Glad hasn't had an ideal start to the season. This sounds like the end of last season. He reportedly broke a toe in practice and may unfortunately be out until May.
Oof. Not great. Not great for Justin Glad. Guy Yedwab, a little bit better news. Scouting Serge Gnabry, the 23-year-old German wide forward for Bayern Munich. Gnabry started in Germany's 3-2 win in Amsterdam. I'm assuming that would be against the Netherlands, creating dangerous chances from literally the first minute until the 88th. He was deployed as a second striker alongside Leroy Sané, which is the formation he played in on loan at Hoffenheim.
That's a lot of pacey threat up top.
Yes, I think Leon Goretzka was behind them as well, so there you go. Gnabry's excellent performance was capped in the 33rd minute when he received a long ball cut back on Van Dijk to create a little space and curled in a beautiful stunner to the top corner. What more can a scout ask for, says Guy.
So this sounds like Yogi Löw's refresh, right? You know how there was a disaster at the World Cup and it was a disaster in the UEFA Nations League? It seems like he's going with younger, faster, higher, faster, further.
Yep, and I believe it was
it's a Captain Marvel rebrand for Germany.
3-4-1-2 as well, with Kimmich played centrally.
All right.
It was Kimmich and I think Thomas Muller. No, it was Tony Kroos. Tony Kroos were your two central midfielders.
Isn't Thomas Muller one of the ones who's on the outs?
Yes, good call.
Boateng, Hummels, Muller.
You got it.
There you go. Ben Langevin is scouting Curtis Jones, the 18-year-old English midfielder for Liverpool. Ben says Curtis was named Player of the Tournament at UAE Sports Chain Cup after he got an assist.
The fabled UAE Sports Chain Cup.
He got an assist and a goal for the England under-18 squad. He also scored 2 goals against Derby County U23s in the Liverpool U23s win.
Hooray. Dennis Dugan, scouting João Moutinho. Not that one. The 21-year-old Portuguese defender for Orlando City, not for Daryl's beloved Wolves. Moutinho put in a solid performance in his first minutes of the season for Orlando City, hitting a first-time cross into the box for Sasha Kleshton's game-winning goal.
Oh, I saw this. He celebrated.
There we go. Who did?
Kleshton.
There we go.
Against Red Bulls.
Playing left wing back in a 3-5-2, Moutinho was positionally sound but not flashy, limiting the energy drink's ability to generate chances down his flank. One downside, Moutinho didn't show much chemistry with his Portuguese countryman Nani. I did see that Nani also held a players-only meeting before the game. Nani taking over.
Have you seen the Tim Parker tackle on Nani? I just saw this on Twitter. There's a moment when Nani's got the ball and he's shaping up and Tim Parker just gets close to him and just does a forearm shove and just knocks him over. Ref doesn't call it and Parker just plays the ball out.
Welcome to the league, kid.
That's
old man.
Welcome to MLS.
Yeah.
Ryan Marzak is scouting Josh Onomar, the English Modric, 21-year-old English midfielder on loan at Sheffield Wednesday from Spurs. Ryan says, after being out since February with a hamstring injury, Onomar returned to training and suffered another injury. This one looks more serious. Onomar dislocated his elbow and may need surgery to repair it, which would likely mean he misses out on the U21 Euros this summer.
Kids, don't dislocate your elbow. It's not a good idea. David Novashevsky scouting Sebastian Szymański, the 19-year-old, Polish midfielder for Legia Warsaw. Szymański had an interesting last few months for club and country. Shortly after resuming play following the Extra classe? Sure.
Yeah,
winter break, Szymański suffered what appeared to be a nasty injury to his right knee. Twitter prognosticators feared a torn ACL, but thankfully it was not a tear, and after sitting out 3 weeks, Szymański was back to playing for his club. On March 21st, he channeled his inner Lionel Messi with a gorgeous free kick to equalize for the Polish U21s in their 1-1 draw with England.
False, because if you channel your inner Leo Messi, you don't score for your national team.
Well, there's that.
Robert Newman is scouting. I feel bad for saying that.
I feel like I said nice things about Barcelona at the start, so you got to finish it with negativity.
Did you know Venezuela beat Argentina?
I did.
Yeah. Robert Newman is
Somebody
scouting.
asked me, how do we cover Venezuela? And I was like, what? What do you mean? I don't understand.
Robert Newman is scouting Mason Mount, the 20-year-old English midfielder on loan at Derby County from Chelsea. Robert says after a lengthy spell on the sidelines with various muscular injuries, Mason Mount is back. He rejoined Derby's first-team training during the international break and should be ready when Derby resumes its matches.
There we are. I cannot remember if I'm supposed to read this final scouting report or if you are. What would you like to do here? You can't read ahead. You just have to say, do you want to read it or do you want me to?
I feel like you want me to, right?
It doesn't matter. I really can't remember. I think he said I'm supposed to read it.
Okay, then you read it. Come on.
Drew Trammell, a.k.a. Dreek van Truens, his Dutch name, I believe.
You know Drew, right? We've met him twice.
Scouting Martin Ødegaard, 20-year-old Norwegian winger on loan at Vitesse.
What?
Remember Martin Ødegaard?
Drew sent a scout report.
Very likely you do not, but don't fret because Daryl didn't really either. He's the 16-year-old Norwegian that signed for Real Madrid in January 2014. This season, Martin has been playing well as a right winger on loan at Vitesse, scoring 7 goals and notching 4 assists in 27 appearances. Lastly, young Ødegaard was excited about the reappointment of Zidane, stating, quote, "It's positive for me too. I know him well and we have a good relationship. I worked under him for a few years, both in Castilla B team and in his time with the first team coach as well," end quote. And Drew was alluding to he sprung a Wikipedia game on us in Chicago, and Daryl forgot that Martin Ødegaard existed.
So wasn't the Wikipedia game was the player I'm scouting?
Yes.
But not sending scouting reports about.
Yes. I think so. I think that's what it was. So this is made good.
Drew also
I wanted to add, Drew said, Taylor, I think I still owe you a drink. I'm pretty sure Drew got me that drink, and then that was the one that made me leave the bar early because I was like, yep, I can no longer use my throat anymore. Drinking whiskey with a...
Not from drunkenness, but from bad throatness, right?
From bad throatness, yes. Actually, it was when I stepped outside to talk to my wife, and it was like this. And I was like, that's not good.
Well, it was negative 400
yes, well, that's true as well.
Drew also, I wanted to share this. He asked us a question the first time we met him in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Remember we were at the bar that was closing down forever? That crazy night.
I mean, I remember being there.
After the live show.
I remember my body being there.
Drew asked, what is the best way to support the show, right? And the answer we came up with, and he asked us to share with listeners, is if you don't want to do the subscription to the Scouting Network, the best way is to support a sponsor, right? Mm-hmm. So if you just want to support the show, then maybe a thing you could do is go to dollarshaveclub.com/TSS, right? And then you sign up, and then the advertiser sees that someone supported us. And then, because in the end, then the advertiser buys more ads, and that supports the Total Soccer Show. So I really appreciated Drew doing a sort of, what's the word? A business advice session with us that was genuinely useful from a listener's perspective and seems like he's a smart guy who just had some knowledge about businessy stuff as well.
All right. Well, thank you to Drew. And also thank you to the listener. I apologize. I cannot remember. We got a tweet from them saying, podcast advertisers might want to take note. I haven't watched a TV commercial in 5 years, but I currently own a Grip 6 belt, a subscription to HelloFresh, an Away Days jersey. So thank you, whomever you are. I promise I wanted to say your name, but Daryl said we couldn't.
That is not what happened. I saw that tweet as well. I'm trying to remember. I don't know.
Right.
But thank you.
Thank you. If you
say thank you enough times, it makes up, right?
I'm pretty sure. That's how it works.
Hey, this is Daryl with a post-production insert. It was Ben Harold who tweeted us. Thank you, Ben Harold. And Ben owns a TSS t-shirt, 3 Grip 6 belts, a Mack Weldon hoodie. Me too, they're really good. 2 pairs of Liverpool jeans. Me too, but even more. So thank you to Ben. Thank you, Ben. Well, thank you to everybody for today's scouting reports. Taylor's going to be out of here on time. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be in time to watch England away to Montenegro. So we're doing really well here. And we did a really good USA versus Chile preview.
I like that comes third.
If you'd like to join the Scouting Network, it's all equal. It's TotalSoccerShow.com/join. If you'd like to support our advertisers, go to TotalSoccerShow.com/advertisers. All the advertisers will be there.
Do it.
Taylor Rockwell.
Give him money.
I've got a 20-minute conversation. No,
get some stuff.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again after USA versus Chile on Tuesday night.